The hum of the orbital station faded into nothing. A deep, eerie quiet rolled through the corridors of Ubuntu 9, cutting through the rhythmic pulse of machinery that had never stopped in years. Then, one by one, the lights dimmed. The world outside the glass, Mars glowing rust beneath, remained still, patient, waiting. Malik Omari Johnson froze at his workstation. He felt it before he saw it, the silence. In a station alive with constant vibration, silence was never a good sign. The readings on his monitor blinked red. Power flux, then failure. He pushed himself from the console, heart hammering. "System shut down?" he murmured, tapping the side of the screen as if that might help. It didn't. Moments later, the intercom cracked with static, and the unmistakable voice of Cathar, the chief Vixal engineer. "All human personnel remain in quarters. Do not interfere." Malik ignored it. He grabbed his toolkit and slipped into the main corridor. The air smelled metallic, hot, tense. As he rounded the corner toward the reactor chamber, the sound of alien voices echoed. Their tones were sharp, clicking, almost melodic. They were panicking. He entered the chamber to find chaos, a swirl of tall, luminous beings with transparent skin, light flickering inside their veins. They clustered around the fusion core, a pulsing sphere now dark and unstable. When they saw him, silence fell again, then laughter. "Fix our reactor, human," one of the engineers sneered, his voice buzzing through a translator device. The others joined in, a cold ripple of amusement. "Maybe your primitive tools will save us." Malik set down his kit slowly. "If you're done laughing, I'll get to work." The laughter deepened. Cathar himself emerged from behind a console, his four eyes glinting like polished obsidian. "Do you think your Earth methods can comprehend Vixal technology?" Malik met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Electricity doesn't care who built the wires. Let me see your data logs." "Denied," Cathar hissed. "This system is beyond your intuition." Malik's jaw tightened. "Then your system's about to implode." Zuriambatha's voice cut through the intercom. "Malik, report. The station's losing orbit control. You have 10 minutes before we drift." "Copy," Malik replied, eyes fixed on the flickering core. "I'm on it." Cathar waved a claw dismissively. "Let the human toy with it. Perhaps he'll amuse us before we die." Malik crouched beside the reactor housing. His hands moved with instinct, tracing the cables, the conduits, the pulse of dying energy. He didn't need permission to feel when something was wrong. He could hear it like music offbeat. He pulled out a small device from his belt, an old Earth-made scanner, obsolete by alien standards but tuned to his liking. The readings came through fuzzy, but clear enough. The problem wasn't mechanical, it was rhythmic. The reactor's energy pulses were misaligned, out of sync. He turned to the aliens. "Your calibration sequence is off by 2 milliseconds. You're fighting your own system." Cathar's laughter returned, sharp and cold. "You presume to lecture us on quantum resonance?" Malik ignored him. "You're using logic loops. It's choking itself. You need manual correction." Cathar's eyes narrowed. "You mean guessing?" "I mean feeling," Malik said. A hush fell over the chamber. Malik stepped closer to the reactor. His reflection warped across its cracked containment shell. He thought of home, of Lagos sector, the hum of old machines kept alive by nothing but patience and will. He remembered his grandmother's voice. "Make it work with what you got, Malik. Don't wait for perfect tools." He smiled faintly. "Let's see what we got." Behind him, Zuri's voice came again, urgent. 5 minutes, Malik. The orbit's slipping fast." He adjusted a conduit manually, feeling the faint vibration return beneath his fingers. A low hum answered him, weak but alive. He looked up. "There. That's the start." The aliens stared, uncertain. Cathar scoffed, but the flicker of doubt touched his expression. Malik rose to his feet, sweat on his brow. "You want to survive or you want to keep laughing?" The silence that followed was heavier than Mars' gravity itself, and somewhere deep within the core, something began to stir. Faint, rhythmic, human. "Subscribe," Malik muttered under his breath with a half-smile, "because this is only getting started." The laughter didn't stop when Malik walked out of the reactor chamber. It echoed through the metal corridors, metallic and cruel, a chorus of disbelief from beings who had never failed. He carried the sound with him, like a hum beneath his ribs, each note sharpening his resolve. The station's artificial gravity trembled again, a reminder that every second mattered. He moved through the narrow maintenance passage, boots scraping the grated floor. Emergency lights pulsed in intervals of red. Every flash painted the walls like a heartbeat, slow and suffocating. In his ear, Zuri's voice cut through the static. "They still mocking you?" Malik exhaled, half a laugh himself. "Like it's a sport. Guess they need something to distract them before the whole station burns. You know they'll never admit they need you." "They don't have to," Malik said. "They just need to live long enough to regret underestimating me." He reached the auxiliary bay, where the human engineering crew had gathered. Aisha Kamau stood near the console, calm despite the chaos, her dark eyes scanning the reactor feed. "They're locking us out of system access," she said quietly. "They don't trust human interference." "Then we work offline," Malik replied, kneeling beside the power relay. "We built half this system anyway, even if they pretend otherwise." Aisha gave a small nod, pride flickering in her voice. "You sound like your grandmother again." "She taught me to improvise," he said, "and to never hand my dignity to anyone who laughs at it." Outside the viewport, Mars burned in stillness. The vast dust storms danced across its horizon, silent but alive. Malik watched the planet for a moment, grounding himself in the memory of Lagos sector. Red sunsets over cracked rooftops, music rising from people who refused to surrender to hardship. The same rhythm pulsed through him now, a quiet defiance. Aisha broke the silence. "You know they'll blame you if this goes wrong." "They already do," Malik answered. "Might as well earn it." He turned his attention back to the tools in his hand. The reactor diagnostics streamed in fragments across a flickering terminal, alien symbols that refused to align with human logic. He translated what he could, muttering under his breath. "They designed perfection and forgot how to repair imperfection." Zuri's voice returned. "Malik, orbit correction's still unstable. If the reactor doesn't come back online, Ubuntu 9 will start falling into Mars's gravity well." "How long?" 7 hours. Maybe less." Malik nodded to himself. "Then we better make them believers before that." He stood, shoulders squared, and walked back toward the reactor bay. The laughter returned before he even crossed the threshold. Cathar was waiting for him, all 4 eyes fixed with disdain. "Back to observe your failure, human. Back to fix yours," Malik replied. Cathar tilted his head. "You still think this is a problem of rhythm and feeling? You have no equations, no models, no logic." "I've got instinct," Malik said, meeting his gaze. "And instinct built every bridge your species walks across." That silenced the room for a heartbeat. Nvek, the youngest of the alien engineers, shifted uncomfortably, his translucent skin glowing faint blue. "Chief," he said softly, "perhaps we should let him attempt calibration. The logic algorithms have failed twice." Cathar's upper lip twitched. "A curiosity, nothing more. Proceed, human. Entertain us while we perish." Malik crouched again, his fingers brushing the cold surface of the fusion conduit. The air vibrated faintly, alive, angry, and waiting. He whispered mostly to himself, "Every machine has a song. You just have to listen long enough to find its key." He started tracing the pattern of the pulses, matching their frequencies in his head. A faint rhythm began to emerge, like drumming in a distant memory. His ancestors had built civilizations by feeling the world's pulse. He could feel this one too. Cathar folded his arms, amused. "And what will you do when the rhythm stops, human?" Malik looked up, steady and unshaken. "Make a new one." For a moment, even the void seemed to hold its breath. The hum of the reactor still lingered in Malik's ears long after he left the chamber. He walked the corridor alone, head lowered, the dim emergency lights flashing like a heartbeat that refused to die. The alien laughter had quieted, but its echo remained, gnawing at him in waves of pride and exhaustion. He reached the small engineering workshop, tucked deep inside the lower deck, a human-built space, patched together with recycled alloy and stubborn faith. The door slid open with a stutter, the kind that made alien engineers sneer. Malik didn't care. Inside, the air smelled like oil, ozone and sweat. It smelled like home. On a workbench lay his old tools, metal wrenches from Earth, a cracked soldering torch, a paper clip bent out of habit. He ran a finger along them, memories rising like heat. He thought back to Lagos sector decades earlier. He'd been a child watching his mother fix an irrigation drone with a spoon and wire. When he asked how, she said, "Because we don't wait for perfect, Malik, we make perfect from what's left." That lesson followed him to the stars. He sat at the table, pulling up schematics of the reactor on a battered screen. The alien design was elegant, too elegant. A system that refused to accept human improvisation, built to reject anything not calculated by its creators. Malik smirked. No wonder it failed. The door hissed behind him. Aisha Kamau stepped inside, silent but steady, her presence grounding. "You're supposed to be resting," she said softly. "Rest when the orbit stabilizes," Malik replied without looking up. "I need to understand how their systems breathe." "They don't breathe," she said, moving closer. "That's the problem." Malik met her eyes. "Exactly." Aisha studied the glowing blueprint for a moment. "You're thinking of bridging the logic grid manually." "I'm thinking of listening," Malik corrected. "Every pulse has rhythm. Their machines run on precision, not feel. That's why they can't hear when it's offbeat." Aisha crossed her arms, the faintest smile forming. "Still the Lagos boy who fixed the Academy's generator with chewing gum and prayer." "Chewing gum and intuition," he said, smiling back. Then the smile faded. "They look at us like we're relics, Aisha. But everything they know started with hands like ours. Hands that built Earth," she said. He nodded, eyes still on the schematic. "Hands that don't forget how to feel." For a moment, silence hung between them, filled only by the hum of the ship's dying systems. Malik traced the outline of the alien circuitry again, his brow furrowed. He began translating segments into human notation, line by line. He spoke as he worked. "They build to remove error. We build to survive it. That's the difference." Aisha tilted her head. "And survival is creativity. Always has been." The console flickered suddenly, a faint spark of life running through its display. Malik leaned forward, adjusting a broken connection. A small surge of energy rippled through the wires, enough to illuminate the symbols more clearly. "See that? It's responding to variable resistance. It's alive in its own way." Aisha placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're close, Malik, but be careful. They'll try to shut you down before you prove them wrong." He nodded. "Then I'll just have to be faster." She turned to leave, pausing at the doorway. "When this is over, remind them who we are." Malik didn't look up, but his voice carried weight. "They'll know. Not because I tell them, but because I'll show them." The door closed behind her, and Malik leaned back, staring at the glowing schematics. His reflection stared back, tired, defiant, human. He reached for the paperclip on the table, rolling it between his fingers. A simple Earth relic, small enough to be dismissed, strong enough to hold things together. He smiled faintly. "Let's see if you still got some magic left." Outside, the station trembled again. Time was running out. The reactor chamber felt colder than before, though Malik knew it wasn't temperature. It was dread. The hum that had filled the station was gone, replaced by the shallow breath of dying systems. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the metal floor, flickering like faint heartbeats of a body trying not to die. Malik stood at the threshold, tool belt strapped, jaw tight. Cathar was already there, his translucent skin pulsing with agitated light. The alien's voice carried through the translator with bitter amusement. "Back again, human? Perhaps your instincts will bless us this time." Malik walked past him without answering. The reactor core loomed ahead, a sphere of fractured glass and dim energy. Its containment field sputtered, blue arcs of unstable plasma rippled like trapped lightning. One misstep could end them all. He crouched beside the access terminal, fingers moving fast over the human-modified interface. The screen flickered between alien glyphs and human code. Nothing aligned. He could feel Cathar watching him. "You shouldn't touch what you don't understand," Cathar said. Malik didn't look up. "You've been touching it for hours, and here we are." A sharp intake of breath, a Vazal equivalent of anger, but the alien said nothing. The chamber's silence pressed in. Sweat trickled down Malik's temple. He could hear the faint hiss of air recyclers struggling to keep up. Each second that passed, the station drifted closer to disaster. Envek lingered nearby, smaller than the others, his glow dimmer. He spoke softly, uncertain. "The resonance field collapsed after the last calibration attempt. The containment won't hold long." Malik glanced at him. "Show me where the collapse started." Envek pointed to a section near the base of the core. Malik followed, kneeling again. The damage was worse than he'd expected, hairline fractures spreading like veins through the reactor glass. He placed a gloved hand on it and felt the vibration, weak but irregular, like a heartbeat skipping beats. "Your systems depend on mathematical precision," Malik murmured. "But energy doesn't stay perfect. It moves like music. It breathes." Cathar scoffed. "Energy does not breathe, human. It obeys law. Maybe that's why it's failing, Malik said quietly. He turned back to the console, scanning through the corrupted data logs. The sequence of the meltdown wasn't random. The energy spikes followed a repeating rhythm, almost intentional. He frowned, tapping the screen. It's looping. What? Envek stepped closer. The failure pattern. It's repeating in cycles. Someone programmed this logic to self-correct, but it's overcompensating, it's strangling itself. That's impossible, Cathar hissed. Our systems cannot miscalculate. Malik turned, his gaze hard. Then your perfect machine is killing itself perfectly. Silence again. Only the flicker of unstable light filled the room. Malik took a slow breath and stood, the metal floor vibrating beneath his boots. You built something that doesn't allow for error, but the universe runs on error. Life does. You can't program around that. A faint rumble passed through the station, and a warning siren wailed in the distance. Zuri's voice broke through the comlink in Malik's ear. Malik, the orbit's destabilizing faster. What's the status? He answered between breaths. The reactor's choking. It's a design flaw. They don't believe it, but I see it. I'll fix it. Be quick, she said. You've got maybe 4 hours before we hit Martian drag. Malik cut the link and faced the aliens. If I can't override the logic loop, the core's going to implode. We need manual calibration. Cathar's tone turned mocking again. You mean guesswork? I mean instinct, Malik said. You might want to learn some. He adjusted the control panel, watching as the reactor pulsed unevenly. For the briefest moment, he caught something, an irregular beat that matched his own pulse. It wasn't chaos. It was rhythm. He looked up, determination burning through fatigue. Your problem isn't in the machine, he said. It's in your belief that it can't be wrong. Cathar's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. Malik turned back to the reactor, whispering to himself, let's find your rhythm before you tear yourself apart. The chamber trembled, and deep within the fractured core, a faint glow stirred again, alive, unstable, and listening. The vibration beneath Malik's feet grew steady, like a whisper just below hearing. It wasn't stable, far from it, but it had rhythm. He crouched near the reactor's pulse monitor, watching the oscillations flicker between failure and persistence. Something was trying to hold on. Cathar loomed above him, arms crossed, 4 eyes narrowed with disdain. This is not how diagnostics are done. You are improvising with a bomb. Malik didn't flinch. Your method already failed. I'm not looking for permission. He tuned the human scanner to trace the energy ripple, not by intensity, but by pattern. The numbers danced across the screen in erratic waves, but Malik saw something in them. It wasn't random. It moved like rhythm. His fingers tapped on the metal casing in time with the pulses. Tap, tap, tap. Pause, tap. A syncopated beat. Memory stirred behind his eyes. He was 12 years old again, sitting beside his grandfather in the back alleys of Lagos sector, listening to old vinyl play Fela Kuti on a rusted sound system. His grandfather tapped his cane in rhythm with the music, teaching Malik how to feel the beat that lived beneath the noise. Listen, boy, he had said, machines got no soul, but everything made by hands carries a rhythm. You feel that rhythm, you can fix anything, no matter how broken. Malik's jaw tightened. That rhythm was here, in this alien machine. Aisha's voice crackled through the private channel. Malik, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah, he said, eyes locked on the screen. It's trying to calibrate, but the logic loop won't let it finish the cycle. It's stuck halfway through a pattern. I think the machine's asking for help, but it doesn't have the code for it. Then give it one, Aisha replied. Your way. He smiled faintly. That's the plan. He stood and turned to Cathar. Your systems rely on absolute conditions, but energy isn't absolute. It flows. And when you try to force it into rigid constraints, it pushes back. Are you proposing to communicate with it? Cathar asked, voice flat. Malik nodded. Exactly. Not through commands, through pattern. The alien's expression twisted in amusement. You believe this reactor will respond to rhythm? I don't believe it, Malik said. I know it. He grabbed a set of old vibration sensors from his kit, placing them along the reactor's outer shell. He tuned them manually, adjusting the output frequency to match what he heard in his head. A slow build, like a heartbeat trying to stabilize. Envek moved closer, eyes wide. It's resonating, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Malik stepped back and crossed his arms. It's responding to tone, not command. Your logic loop can't hear it because it's not written for it. But that loop's still running, so I'm writing a counter loop manually, using wave resonance as the key. Cathar scoffed. That is not science. That is superstition. It's understanding, Malik replied. Your math tries to remove error. Our culture teaches us to move with it. That's what makes us builders. The reactor pulsed once. Cleaner now. Steadier. A faint blue light returned to the cracked glass, like breath after drowning. The chamber fell into silence. Malik exhaled slowly. He turned to Envek. If I map the full rhythm manually, we can recalibrate the internal sync without shutting the core down. But I'll need time. Envek nodded quickly. I'll assist. I've seen how the resonance arrays were installed. I can help translate. Cathar said nothing. He watched silently as the human and his own apprentice moved in tandem. Malik placed one hand on the reactor shell, eyes closing for a second. He let the vibration travel up his arm into his chest. The rhythm was there, not alien, not human, just life. All right, he whispered. Let's teach this machine how to breathe again. The vibration was stabilizing slightly. The pulses no longer fought each other in wild discord. Now they echoed faintly in a kind of rhythm, not yet harmony, but close enough to give Malik hope. He stood beside Envek, sweat running down his temple, tools in hand, listening, always listening. Pulse sinks drifting again, Envek said, checking the makeshift sensors Malik had placed earlier. But it's not collapsing like before. That's because it's learning, Malik replied. I'm not forcing it to be perfect. I'm giving it room to breathe. Envek's glow shimmered a deeper shade of violet, a sign of fascination, Malik had learned. You treat the system like it's alive. Malik shrugged. Everything made by hands is alive in some way. My grandmother used to say you gotta respect what you build, or it won't work for you. Footsteps echoed from the corridor. Zuri entered the chamber, helmet under her arm, her eyes sweeping the scene. Command says we've slowed orbital drift by 2%. Whatever you're doing, it's buying us time. Malik nodded. Good. We're not dead yet. Zuri stepped closer, her gaze flicking to Cathar, who remained silent in the corner, arms crossed, watching. They still think you're making this up as you go? Malik grinned. I am making it up. That's the point. Zuri raised a brow. And people say I take risks. He gestured to the flickering core. You want this fixed by the book? Use their book. But the book broke the machine. What we need is jazz. Zuri let out a low whistle, shaking her head. You're serious. Dead serious. Jazz ain't chaos. It's structure with soul. That's how I'm treating this system. Zuri chuckled under her breath. Remind me never to let you near my flight console. Behind them, a low mechanical groan rumbled through the floor. Malik's eyes snapped to the diagnostic screen. The pulse dipped but didn't flatline. He sighed in relief. Still stable, Envek confirmed. Barely. Zuri turned to Cathar. You going to help, or keep watching like some judge waiting to declare failure? Cathar's face tightened. The human's methods are unorthodox. Zuri stepped toward him. Unorthodox is the only thing keeping this station in orbit right now. For a moment no one spoke. The reactor's quiet thrum filled the chamber. Then Cathar finally moved forward, eyes on Malik. You are doing this without prediction models, without validated outcomes. And yet the system responds. Malik didn't stop working. It responds because I'm not treating it like a puzzle. I'm treating it like a conversation. Cathar studied him, the disdain in his posture dimming just slightly. You violate every principle of design. Funny, Malik said. That's exactly how we survived Earth's collapse. Your people had logic. We had survival. Zuri crossed her arms, watching Cathar with caution. Are you ready to admit he might be right? The alien paused, then gave the faintest tilt of his head. I am ready to admit. The results are not dismissible. Malik smirked. I'll take that as a thank you. I did not say thank you. You didn't have to. Cathar turned and walked toward the monitoring station, muttering something in Vizali. Malik didn't need a translator to know it was reluctant respect. Zuri leaned closer. You just got under his skin. I don't want under his skin. I want under this machine's code, Malik said, tightening a bolt. Respect's earned, one beat at a time. The lights around the core pulsed in a steady loop now, brighter, slower. The rhythm was clearer, not stable, but no longer chaotic. Malik exhaled, wiping his brow. We're not done, but we've got a foothold. Zuri nodded. You got 3 hours before Mars pulls us in. Think it's enough? It has to be. From the other side of the chamber, Envek looked over, eyes glowing softly. What now? Malik picked up the paperclip from his pocket, unbent it slowly between his fingers. Now, he said, we improvise the rest of the symphony. The chamber lights dimmed again, just enough to remind everyone that stability was still fragile. The pulse of the reactor had steadied, but the tension around it had not. Malik sat cross-legged on the grated floor beside the main conduit, calibrating his sensor relay, using the bent paperclip he'd straightened with practiced ease. Cathar's voice cut through the quiet. So now the fate of this station depends on human office supplies? Malik didn't even look up. No, it depends on adaptability. The paperclip's just part of the symphony. A low ripple of amusement passed through the Vizal engineers observing from the back of the chamber. Malik could feel their eyes on him, unblinking, calculating, still unconvinced. He twisted the clip into a makeshift pin and inserted it carefully into the fractured relay interface. A tiny spark jumped. The pulse monitor flickered once, then steadied. Zuri let out a breath. It worked. Of course it did, Malik muttered. Cathar stepped forward. You realize your methods lack sustainability. Improvisation is not a solution. It is a delay. Malik turned to face him fully. Sometimes a delay is the difference between extinction and survival. You ever think about that? Cathar's eyes narrowed. We evolved past improvisation. No, Malik said evenly. You evolved past humility. Zuri gave a low whistle and stepped between them, before the silence turned combative. Let's not forget we're all still on the same sinking ship. Envek approached with a data slate glowing softly. I've mapped the new pulse sequence. It's stabilizing in layers, like harmonic overtones. Exactly, Malik said. It's not linear. It's polyrhythmic, like layered drums. The logic loop can't handle it, but the reactor can. We're just not listening right. Envek blinked. Like music, Malik smiled. Now you're speaking my language. A sharp buzz interrupted the moment. The central console's warning light flashed amber. Malik rushed over, scanning the display. The energy load was shifting, too fast. Reactor's responding to the pulse input, but it's overcompensating, like it's trying to match a beat it doesn't understand. Zuri looked over his shoulder. What does that mean? It means the core is learning, but it's panicking. It's trying to match rhythm with rigid logic. That combination's unstable. Cathar crossed his arms again. You call this progress? I call this a first conversation, Malik said. You don't talk to a child and expect them to write poetry on day one. Another flicker, a brief surge. The lights above pulsed white, then faded back to red. Malik adjusted the waveform calibration, tuning it like a soundboard. We need to let the rhythm guide the core, not force it. This isn't about dominating the system. It's about harmonizing with it. Anthropomorphizing machinery, Cathar scoffed. Primitive. Malik straightened. You call it primitive. I call it survival instinct. Back home we made broken water systems run with string and bottle caps. We fixed what shouldn't have worked, not because we had the right tools, but because we refused to give up. A moment passed, then another. The reactor's pulse settled into a soft, repeating rhythm. Envek's voice was quiet, awed. It's responding again, stronger this time. Zuri turned to Cathar. Still think this is just guesswork? Cathar didn't respond. He only watched, his gaze unreadable. Malik returned to his station, brushing dust from his fingers. Every culture leaves fingerprints in its tools. Ours taught us how to feel our way through failure. That's not weakness, that's power. Zuri smirked. We've still got a long way to go. Yeah, Malik said. But now the system's listening. A sudden tremor ran through the floor, short but firm. A warning. The station wasn't saved yet. Malik steadied himself, eyes narrowing. Let's make it hear us a little louder. Malik tightened the final node on the resonance interface, the pulse of the reactor now echoing through the chamber like a distant drum beat. The rhythm was almost smooth. Almost. But he could feel it buckling at the edges, a jitter in the energy field that hadn't been there before. Zuri stood near the observation panel, helmet back on, visor darkened. Whatever you're doing, it's reaching the other systems. Life support just flickered again, but gravity's holding. Means the core's talking to the station, Malik said. Problem is, it's speaking in two voices, ours and theirs. The system doesn't know which one to trust. Envek adjusted a small portable console beside him. If we sync the remaining feedback loops to the dominant frequency, the logic strain might resolve. Might, Malik repeated. He stared at the vibrating column of the core, its glow more stable now, but still with that unpredictable stutter. But that stutter's telling me something. Cathar stepped forward. Your makeshift approach has brought the reactor from collapse to instability, yet it remains unstable, because you're still trying to control the system instead of letting it adapt. Cathar's expression hardened. Adaptation without control leads to entropy, and control without adaptation leads to failure, Malik said, walking slowly around the core, feeling the beat of it vibrate through his boots. This whole reactor was built to prevent error. But that's not how life works. Life learns from error, learns from rhythm. He paused, one hand on the conduit's outer shell. The vibration against his palm reminded him of the bass speakers back in Lagos sector, back when the only thing that worked in his family's apartment was the old stereo. Even when the lights failed, the music didn't. Malik turned to Envek. What if we stop trying to balance the two voices and instead teach them how to sing together? Envek tilted his head. Harmonics. Yeah, not control. Harmony. He reached into his toolkit, pulled out a cracked frequency tuner, obsolete by any modern standard, and attached it to the core's input node. The device vibrated slightly, then buzzed with static before sinking to the pulse. Zuri raised a brow. That thing even still work? Worked on Earth, Malik said. Let's see if it still remembers how to dance. He adjusted the dial slowly, changing the tone of the output. The pulse shifted, first irregular, then smoother. A wave of light rippled through the reactor. Cathar flinched. What did you do? I let it improvise. The pulse was no longer rigid. It wasn't locked to either algorithm. It was shifting, bending slightly with each beat, adjusting itself. Malik grinned. Now it's learning in real time, feeling the beat, not fighting to control it, but flowing with it. Zuri checked her console. Stabilization levels just jumped 15%. It's holding. Cathar stared at the readout, silent for once. Envek stepped beside Malik, eyes wide. You taught it to move like music. I didn't teach it. I just stopped telling it to be perfect. The lights in the chamber grew brighter, not sharp but warm, like dawn peeking through clouds. The hum from the reactor wasn't mechanical anymore. It was deep, rich, full. Malik tapped his foot, matching the rhythm. That's the sound of energy that's been set free. Another tremor shook the station, but this time it wasn't from instability. It was a shift in orbital tension. Zuri looked up sharply. That was Mars pulling again. How long do we have? Malik's face turned serious. Not long, but we're not done yet. The core's listening, but now it has to speak back. Cathar approached slowly. You believe this? This improvisation will hold? Malik nodded. If we let it. But from here on, every adjustment has to match the rhythm. No more overwriting. We follow the flow. Cathar hesitated, then gave a slow nod. Then, we follow. Malik turned back to the core, his fingers hovering above the next set of controls. We're not just repairing a machine, he whispered. We're teaching it how to live. The vibration beneath their feet had changed. It no longer felt like a failing heart, but something awakening, newborn and unsure. Malik stood still for a moment, listening to it. Not just the reactor, but beyond it. He could feel Mars itself rumbling beneath them, the station responding to the tug of the planet's magnetic pull. Zuri's voice came over the comm, low and tense. We've dropped another 0.2 degrees in orbital vector. The gravity assist from Mars is pulling harder than expected. Malik nodded slowly. We're still inside the margin. Barely. He turned to Envek. The rhythm's sinking to something else now. It's not just stabilizing internally, it's responding to the planet. Envek looked confused. But the system wasn't designed to interact with planetary fields. Exactly, Malik said. But energy moves through space like waves. It listens to the world around it. And right now, it's trying to harmonize with Mars. Cathar frowned. That could overload the core. Planetary interference isn't predictable. Malik crouched next to the resonance interface, adjusting the tuner's frequency again. Then we guide it through. We don't fight the pull, we match it. Zuri's voice snapped through again. We've got turbulence in Deck 5. Magnetic flux hitting the outer shell. This is going planetary fast. I need full sensor access, Malik said. I need the heartbeat of Mars. Aisha Kamau's voice entered the channel, calm as ever. I'm rerouting the Terra magnetic scans now. Uploading to your local feed. A new waveform appeared on Malik's display, an ancient rhythm, deep and slow. The core's pulse was already bending to it, reaching out. "Here we go," he whispered. He began tuning the internal sequence, altering the algorithm to follow the Martian frequency. It was a dance now, energy shifting, flowing, responding to the ancient pull of a planet older than memory. Envec moved beside him. "It's working. The resonance is aligning, like music layered over a drum." "That's the heartbeat of dust," Malik said. "Mars isn't dead. It just speaks low." Zuri's voice returned, half breathless. "Stabilization increasing. Artificial gravity just snapped into balance." Malik stood, breathing hard. "We've made the reactor a listener. Now it's learning to speak the planet's language." Cathar approached slowly. "Your methods, they defy our programming, but the results are undeniable." Malik looked at him. "You thought our culture was chaos. But rhythm isn't chaos. It's understanding through movement. You built for certainty, we built for survival." He turned back to the controls, syncing the last harmonic band. The glow inside the core shifted from flickering blue to a deep radiant violet, the color of harmony. The station stopped shaking. Zuri's voice came back, quieter. "We're holding orbit." Malik closed his eyes for a beat, letting the moment land. His body ached from tension, but his chest lifted with something deeper. Aisha's voice joined the channel. "That sound, that frequency, it's beautiful." "It's Mars," Malik said. "And it's singing back." Cathar remained quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its usual sharpness. "You did not repair the reactor. You changed it." "I reminded it how to live," Malik said. "Machines fail because they forget to adapt, just like people." He looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, stained with wire oil. The same hands that had once fixed a broken fan in a Lagos alley now guided alien tech through planetary harmony. Envec stepped forward. "The system is stable. No more fluctuation." Zuri added, "We bought time, but we're still in orbit. Still close to descent range." Malik nodded. "Then we keep adjusting, we keep listening." He looked out the viewport, Mars hanging below them like a sleeping giant. The planet had spoken, and now the station was humming with its voice. "We follow the pulse," Malik said, "all the way through." The air inside the chamber was different now, not lighter, not heavier, just aware. Malik felt it in his chest, the way the rhythm moved through the floor like a living current. The station wasn't just stabilizing, it was shifting into something else, something that understood adaptation, tension, and release. Aisha Kamau's voice came through the comm, warm and deliberate. "We've analyzed the new wave structure. Malik, it's not a simple correction. You've rewritten the reactor's behavior entirely." "I didn't rewrite it," he replied, kneeling to adjust the interface node one last time. "I reminded it how to improvise." Cathar hovered behind him, uncharacteristically silent. His luminous eyes stayed fixed on the recalibrated pulse display, watching as the energy undulated in smooth, layered waves. "You restructured the logic to embrace irregularity," he said at last. Malik stood. "I made space for failure, so the system could find its own balance." Zuri tapped the console beside her. "Gravity's holding. Life support stabilized. Radiation levels are dropping. I hate to say it, but it's beautiful." Malik smiled faintly. Beauty wasn't the goal. Survival was. "But sometimes they overlap." Cathar stepped forward. "We have always sought perfection, but perhaps in doing so we created fragility." Malik turned to face him fully. "Perfection's a cage. It doesn't bend. So when pressure comes, it breaks. But people like me, we've been bending since birth." There was no arrogance in his tone, just history, centuries of being underestimated. Generations of making do with scraps. Cultures surviving on creativity and faith where resources were absent. It was in his DNA. It was his superpower. Aisha's voice softened. "Malik, this method, it's yours. It's not from the textbooks, not from the simulations, it's from your people." He closed his eyes briefly, grounding himself. "Yeah, from Lagos sector, from rusted circuits and soldered faith, from drums that never stopped beating, even when the lights went out." Zuri stepped forward. "What do we call it?" Malik looked at the humming reactor. "Call it human genius." The phrase hung in the room like a reverent silence. Then a soft beeping broke through, an alert on the diagnostic board. Malik turned. The reactor was outputting a new set of data. He scanned the lines quickly. It's creating its own harmonics now, adjusting the energy flow in micro-shifts to stay aligned with the station's mass drift. It's alive, Envek whispered. Not sentient, but responsive in ways we never predicted. Cathar nodded slowly. A living rhythm. Malik stepped back, arms crossed. That's what we do. Humans. We turn chaos into cadence, pain into progress. We don't erase the struggle, we dance with it. Zuri chuckled. You gonna start a philosophy class after this? He smirked. Nah, I'll let the work speak. Aisha's voice returned. There's still work to be done. Orbit's stable, but long-term drift corrections need calculation. Backup systems are still sinking. Let them sink, Malik said. We're not in freefall anymore. Let the system breathe. He turned to Cathar. You still think this was luck? Cathar's answer was quiet. No, it was insight born from experience we do not share. But now, we must learn from it. Malik nodded. That's all I ever wanted. The reactor pulsed once more. Calm, even content. The chamber's hum was no longer a warning. It was a rhythm. It was a groove. Zuri glanced at the timer. How long before full harmony? Malik picked up his old tuner, pocketed the paperclip. Doesn't matter, we're in tune now. Everything else is just refinement. He looked around the chamber. Cathar, humbled. Envek, inspired. Zuri, alert and sharp. The station no longer on the brink. Malik exhaled deeply. Now we see if they'll let the rhythm lead. The first warning tone shattered the calm. A sharp beep from the overhead system sliced through the chamber like a blade. Malik's eyes snapped to the diagnostics panel. The waveform was off, just slightly, but enough to matter. Zuri's voice came over the comm instantly. We've got a spike. Outer shell tension increasing. Something's pushing back. Malik stepped toward the console, fingers flying across controls. The reactor's pulse had started to desync again, fluctuating in irregular bursts. Envek looked alarmed. It's trying to adapt too fast. The core's overcorrecting, Malik muttered. It's mimicking Mars's field with too much sensitivity. The system's reacting to micro-shifts in the orbit. Cathar, who had been silent for several minutes, spoke suddenly. You told it to listen. Now it hears too much. Malik didn't flinch. I didn't tell it to panic. That's not what listening means. It's destabilizing, Envek shouted. The secondary containment is taking stress. Zuri's voice turned sharp. Malik, we're climbing toward critical rotation. Hull integrity's down 3%. Fix it now. The pulse monitors flashed red. Malik gritted his teeth. We tuned it to flow, but we didn't give it boundaries. He reached for the backup console, calling up the original schematic overlays, lines of alien logic that had once resisted every human override. Now they flickered, uncertain, like they were waiting for direction. Cathar approached cautiously. Your human design must be anchored. Improvisation needs limits, or it becomes chaos. I know, Malik said, but those limits can't be rigid. He looked to Envek. What if we introduced a hybrid sequence? A buffer that absorbs fluctuation, but adjusts its parameters based on wave strength. Something organic, flexible. Envek hesitated. That would require manual modulation. You'd have to adjust it constantly. Malik didn't blink. Then I'll do it. He sat at the tuning interface and slid the control pad open. The screen split into layered bands, each representing a different energy flow. His fingers moved fast, guiding the lower rhythm down while softening the peak harmonics. Cathar watched intently. How you're shaping the field like a sculptor. I'm letting it breathe with rhythm, but setting a floor it can't drop below, Malik said, sweat glistening on his brow. The tremors eased. The hum steadied. Then another sharp spike hit the system, but this time, instead of collapsing, the new buffer absorbed the surge and redirected it. Zuri checked her readings. Hull pressure normalizing. Gravity holding. That did it. You gave the system a voice and now you're its conscience. Malik didn't respond right away. His eyes were focused, adjusting the bands with minute movements, listening to every beat. His whole body moved in rhythm now, shoulders subtly swaying, head nodding slightly to the pulse. It wasn't science anymore. It was art. It was trust. Then something shifted beside him. A hand. Envek placed his three-fingered palm on the secondary dial, mirroring Malik's movement. I want to learn, Envek said quietly. Malik glanced at him. Then listen. Don't watch. Just listen. They tuned together, human and alien. adjusting the breath of a machine no longer bound by rigid command. Cathar took a step back, his expression unreadable. You have turned our greatest failure into a living force, not by control but by conversation. Malik looked up. That's the difference. You built a voice. I gave it something to say. Outside the viewport, Mars loomed large, its orbit steady. The red planet no longer threatened to pull them under. The reactor glowed, not violently, not in warning, but warmly, as if it had found its place. Zuri spoke softly now. You were right. This wasn't just engineering. No, Malik said. This was trust, between machine and man, between cultures. The panic faded, replaced by something rare aboard Ubuntu 9. Silence. Not the silence of failure, but the pause after music ends, the breath before applause. Malik leaned back, the paper clip still in his pocket, the rhythm still in his soul. The chamber no longer throbbed with crisis. Instead, it breathed like a living body at rest, its pulse even, its hum rich and warm. The reactor, once on the verge of collapse, now emitted a steady violet glow that danced across the walls in fluid waves. Malik stood in silence, shoulders slack for the first time in hours. He looked down at the floor, then at his hands that had once twisted copper wires on Earth to bring a broken radio back to life. Zuri stepped beside him, voice low. You did it. Malik's gaze remained on the core. We did it. All of us. Even the reactor. It just needed someone to hear it. Cathar approached, each step deliberate. He stopped a few feet away, arms by his side, posture stripped of superiority. You spoke of survival, improvisation, of letting imperfection breathe. I understand now. Malik turned to face him, tired but composed. Do you? Cathar nodded once. You forged harmony through deviation. Your toolkits, primitive, your methods, unpredictable, but the outcome is undeniable. Zuri grinned. Told you he was a miracle worker. Malik chuckled. No miracles, just rhythm and resilience. A small chirp drew his attention. The portable monitor, clipped to his belt, flashed a final notification. System equilibrium achieved. No further adjustment required. Envec looked over from the main station. We've reached full stabilization. No drift, no energy bleed. He paused. The containment field is now adaptive. It learned. Malik nodded. Machines can evolve. They just need space to. Cathar's eyes narrowed slightly. What was the key? Malik didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his utility pouch and held out the bent paperclip. The small piece of metal, blackened at the tip, trembled slightly from residual static. This, he said simply. Our tool that wasn't meant for the job, but did it anyway. Because that's how we survive. Cathar stared at it for a moment, then extended his hand. Malik placed the clip in his palm. The alien studied it in silence, then closed his fingers around it. We will add this to the official records of the reactor recalibration, Cathar said. It will be known as the paperclip protocol. Malik laughed. Seriously? Zuri snorted. You just got immortalized by office supplies. Malik shook his head, still grinning. I can live with that. Cathar's tone turned reflective. This station is built from alien precision and human improvisation. Perhaps it is stronger for it. It always was, Malik replied. You just couldn't see it until it broke. Zuri walked to the viewport. Mars loomed outside, its surface calm, no longer threatening. She tapped the glass lightly. We're back in orbit. Ubuntu 9 survived. Aisha's voice came through the comms. And it'll continue to, if we learn from this. Malik, I've submitted a report to Central Command. They want to review your process in full. Possibly implement it on other stations. Malik sighed, the weight finally leaving his shoulders. If they do, tell them it wasn't a process. It was a mindset. Zuri raised an eyebrow. You going to write a manifesto now? No, Malik said. I'm going to sleep. Everyone chuckled except Cathar, who held the paperclip like it was made of gold. Perhaps Earth's resilience is not rooted in complexity, but in courage. Malik met his eyes. You're starting to get it. The chamber lights shifted to standby mode. The hum of the reactor faded into a peaceful thrum. There was nothing left to fix. Just as Malik turned to leave, Envec called after him. Will you teach us more? He stopped in the doorway. If you're ready to learn the beat behind the logic, I'll teach you everything I know. Then he disappeared into the corridor, heartbeat steady, rhythm in his stride. The corridors of Ubuntu 9 had never been this quiet, not from fear, but reverence. Malik walked alone toward the central atrium, his boots echoing softly against metal floors polished by necessity rather than vanity. The station no longer trembled beneath him. It pulsed gently, steady, alive. On his way, passing crew members nodded. Some smiled, others simply stepped aside, giving him space, as if they now understood he'd become something more than just an engineer. He wasn't comfortable with the attention, but he accepted it. Not for himself, but for what it represented. The door to the atrium opened. Her gathering had already formed. Human crew, Vixal engineers, support bots, all present. Even Aisha stood in the center, flanked by Zuri and Cathar. Malik stopped at the edge of the circle. Cathar took a step forward. "Malik Omari Johnson," he said, voice echoing with ceremonial clarity. "We do not often admit fault. Our culture sees imperfection as weakness." Malik said nothing. "But today," Cathar continued, "we recognize that our flaw was not in the reactor. It was in our refusal to listen." There was a long pause. Then Cathar extended his hand, not stiff or formal, but human in shape and gesture. "You taught us that balance is not always in control, but in adaptation. For that we honor you." Malik stepped forward and accepted the handshake. His grip was firm, grounded. Aisha smiled faintly. "Humanity didn't come to the stars because of flawless systems. We came because our ancestors taught us how to keep moving when nothing worked." Zuri added, "You reminded all of us, alien or not, that strength doesn't always look like precision. Sometimes it looks like a paperclip and faith." Laughter rippled through the group, light and genuine. Malik looked around the room. "We didn't save the station because I had all the answers. We saved it because people listened, because someone like Nvek was brave enough to question, because Zuri broke protocol to open a door, because Aisha believed improvisation could be a solution." He turned to the young alien apprentice. "You saw the change first. You trusted your instincts." Nvek lowered his head in acknowledgement. "I saw your hands work and I knew. Your people understand the heart of things." Cathar spoke again. "We will document the event, not as a failure, but a transformation. One led by a human who saw rhythm where we saw noise." A low chime echoed from the control deck. A final confirmation, orbital alignment secure. Ubuntu 9 had not only survived, it had stabilized beyond previous parameters. Malik turned back to Aisha. "So, and what now?" She gestured to the large data slate resting on the ceremonial table. "Now, we record it. Not just the steps, but the mindset. Not just the solution, but the spirit that made it possible." Cathar added, "The engineers of the future will learn your protocol, but more importantly, they will learn your rhythm." Malik hesitated. "I didn't come here to be a symbol." Zuri grinned. "Too late." He looked down, thoughtful. "Then let them remember it wasn't about the clip. It was about listening when no one else would." The lights in the atrium dimmed, revealing Mars through the curved glass dome above them. Red, vast, beautiful. Aisha said quietly, "From the soil of Lagos to the orbit of Mars, the beat continues." And in that silence, filled with respect and renewal, Malik felt something shift. Not the reactor, not the station, the future. Malik returned to the lower maintenance bay hours later, long after the gathering had dispersed, and the station resumed its gentle orbit over Mars. The hum of the reactor echoed like a distant heartbeat through the metal bones of Ubuntu 9. No longer erratic, no longer desperate, just alive. The tools on his bench remained untouched, just as he'd left them. Wrenches, stripped wires, that half-cracked interface board he swore he'd fix weeks ago. Everything simple, everything familiar. He sat down slowly, hands resting on his knees. The ache in his arms had settled into something warm, not exhaustion but fulfillment. A shadow crossed the doorway. Aisha stepped in, holding a folded piece of cloth. She approached in silence and placed it on the bench beside him. "They made this for you," she said. Malik unfolded it. A patch, embroidered in deep gold on black, a stylized reactor core encircled by a rhythm wave, and beneath it, a tiny outline of a paperclip. He exhaled through a smile. "They're really not going to let that go, huh?" She shrugged. "Symbols matter." He traced the edge of the patch with his thumb. "It wasn't just the paperclip, though." "No," she said, settling beside him. "It was your hands, your heart, your people." Malik looked at her. "You think Earth will understand. I think Earth already knows. We've been fixing broken things with spirit for centuries. We just never thought it would take us this far into the stars." He nodded slowly, his thoughts drifting. When I was a kid, I used to build kites out of plastic bags. Just string, twigs, and whatever scraps I could find. They'd fly crooked, but they flew. People would laugh, say it was foolish. But I learned more about resistance, pressure, and lift from those kites than I ever did in the academy. Aisha smiled. And now you've built a legacy from that same instinct. Outside the viewport, Mars turned. Red dust storms twisted quietly across the surface. The planet watched, unmoved, unchanged. And yet above it floated a station that had refused to fall, held aloft by something no algorithm could measure. Envek entered hesitantly, hands clasped behind his back. "May I join you?" Malik gestured to the empty seat. "Course." The young alien sat, eyes curious. "I reviewed your recalibration patterns. They weren't uniform. They fluctuated based on internal response. You adjusted dynamically. I didn't know that was possible." "It's not supposed to be," Malik said. "But when has that ever stopped us?" Envek was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, "I wish to learn more." Malik turned to him. "Then don't just study my patterns. Study your own instincts. Listen. Not to code, to rhythm. Your heartbeat, your breath. The space between commands. That's where the truth lives." Envek nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Aisha stood, placing a gentle hand on Malik's shoulder. "You gave them more than stability. You gave them memory." As she left, Malik looked back at the patch in his hand. A symbol now. A legacy. He reached for a worn piece of cloth from his own kit, tore a corner from it, and began sewing the patch in place, right over the heart. Zuri's voice crackled through the comm. "Malik, I've got a pilot team requesting you join the next Martian flyover. They say they trust your rhythm more than the nav system." He laughed. "Tell them I'll bring my tuner." Outside, the red curve of Mars stretched endlessly beneath them. Dust, stone, silence. But above it floated music, motion, and the living proof that hands shaped by struggle could hold the future together. Malik leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping a soft beat on the table. A rhythm. His rhythm. One that had started long before him and would continue long after. The hum of Ubuntu 9 was no longer background noise. It had become a language, steady, confident, familiar. The station orbited smoothly, her systems no longer resisting the pull of Mars, but moving in harmony with it. The danger had passed. The crisis was memory. Malik stood in the observation dome alone. Below him, the red sands of Mars stretched out in endless ripples. Above him, stars blinked in silence, indifferent but present. The void had never felt so full. Zuri's voice came through his earpiece. "Final diagnostics confirm full stability across all systems. Command wants to schedule debriefs for the Earth Council next cycle. Think you're ready for fame." He smiled. "They'll probably edit half the story out. Not the part with the paperclip." Malik laughed softly. "That part will haunt me forever." A pause, then she added, "You coming back down?" "In a bit," he said. "Just needed a moment." Silence returned. The good kind. The kind earned through storms. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. Aisha. She didn't speak right away. She didn't need to. Her presence had always been a calming force, anchored, timeless. "You've been quiet since the ceremony," she said gently. Malik nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how close we came to losing everything, and how what saved us wasn't logic or tech, but memory, rhythm, feel." He turned to her. "They wanted perfect systems, but we were never perfect. We're adaptive, resilient, and that's why we endure." Aisha studied him. "They'll remember this. What you did. They should remember what built it," he said. "Every ancestor who fixed what they didn't invent, who adapted because no one else gave them options. We didn't get here by waiting for the right tools. We got here by using whatever we had and believing that was enough." Aisha placed a hand on his shoulder. "And that belief just saved a station." He exhaled slowly. "I still hear it, you know, the reactor's pulse. It's like music now." "Because it is," she said. "You gave it a voice." They stood in silence, watching the Martian horizon. The first rays of solar reflection kissed the edges of the atmosphere, casting the surface in a soft amber glow. Behind them, a door opened. Envek stepped inside, hesitant but glowing. Literally. His skin shimmered with a calm blue hue. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said, "but the Council of Engineers has formally requested the human calibration files. They want to study them and name a new protocol tier after you." Malik raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Tier M? Envek nodded. M for Malik. Also, M for music. Malik chuckled. Then I hope they remember the beat. Envek approached slowly. I've also been reassigned. Oh? I asked for it, he said. I'll be joining Earth Station 1. I want to learn more about human engineering, improvisation, rhythm. Malik extended his hand. Envek shook it without hesitation. Then you're already on the right track, Malik said. Listen more than you speak. And always trust your hands. Envek smiled, then turned to leave. As the dome quieted again, Aisha turned to Malik. So what will you do next? He thought for a moment. Rest, then maybe teach, maybe build. The stars aren't done with us yet. She nodded. And when they call, you'll answer. He looked back at Mars, now glowing in full sunlight. I'll answer with rhythm. A final message pinged through the station comms. End transmission, Ubuntu 9 reactor restored. Malik turned from the window, footsteps light as he walked away, and as the stars waited in silence, one man's beat echoed into the infinite. Steady, proud, human. Subscribe for the next story, and if this rhythm moved you, stay with us. There's more to come.